back to my channel. Wow, it's been a minute since I've uploaded a longer video. I've been focusing more on shorts right now just because they're quicker and they're easier. I can show you anything that I'm doing in less than 3 minutes and get to the point. But I guess, I don't know, I've been in a little bit of a funk as far as content creating. I don't like to put pressure on myself to create things just to create things, I don't like to force it. And I know this type of thing is, it's a lot of content creators' livelihood, so they constantly have to keep moving and just keep the wheels turning, photograph this, video that, every step of the way. I did try that, and I feel like I always have my phone or my camera in my hand at all times, and I'm not actually, focusing on what I'm doing because I'm so focused on capturing what I'm doing at that moment, be it, washing dishes, cooking, anything with my plants. Um, so I kind of took a little bit of a break, especially when I'm doing something major like last weekend. I went to PlantCon International and in Los Angeles, and I felt like I had to capture every moment of it, obviously, because it's a big convention. It's their first time coming to LA. But after all of it was done and over with, I feel like I focused a lot more on capturing, videos, photos, rather than just enjoying a little bit of that convention. Not to say that I shouldn't have captured every moment on camera, but I feel like I could have taken a step back and just, you know, enjoyed some moments without a piece of technology in my hand to capture. But yeah, it's been a minute, and I feel like, hey, let's come back with something simple like moss pole. This, I want to add a moss pole to this philodendron silver sword. I was close to selling her off, but I feel like if I add a moss pole and let it grow up, with some big, and get some big beautiful leaves, I will love her a little bit better. Right now she's a little bit wonky. She does have a new leaf emerging right here. Um, and she's on this bamboo stake here that's not really doing much for her. It's a little bit, you see that? It's very wobbly. It's not really doing much for her. So I feel like once I get this moss pole on the in the pot and get it all situated, I think I will really like the way it looks. This will be my, let's see, one, two, three, four, fifth moss pole, and that is a lot coming. That is a lot of moss pole. Um, for someone who's always claiming to hate moss poles so much. Because they are a lot of maintenance, but you have to use the right moss. I found that out really quick. I like to use there are different qualities of moss, and I feel like the sphagnum moss, I buy it from, they're in the little packs like that big. Let's see if I have one near me so I can show you. Here it is. This is the moss that I buy. I get it at Lowe's, I think, or Home Depot. They are, right now, they're under on that little shelf or under the orchids. Wherever they have orchids, this is going to be on the little shelves, the little cubbies under it, under the orchids. And I really like this moss because it holds moisture for longer. There are bigger bags of sphagnum moss. I believe it's sphagnum moss, or it might be a different kind of moss, but it does not hold moisture for very long. it dries up so quickly, and I have used it for, I don't believe I have that bag right now to show you, but it was drying out quicker, and it was really annoying trying to keep it. Almost daily I had to water those moss poles, so then I got rid of them, and I haven't had any moss poles for over a year because I got rid of them. And just recently I ordered some of these larger moss poles off of Amazon, and I have added so far 4 plants. I've added moss poles to 4 plants so far, and I am very happy with them right now. I have my, oh, actually, this will be my 6th moss pole with this philodendron silver sword. I added one to my Thai constellation, my Monstera Thai constellation, and it is doing great. It looks amazing. I added one to my philodendron spirit of sanctity, and almost like instantly the roots found themselves into the moss pole, and that one is growing really great. I added one to my Monstera Burlmark's Flame, and that one has already rooted itself into the moss pole, and I am just very surprised at how fast that happened, because the last time that I made moss poles for my plants, the roots did not take to the moss pole, and I am almost certain it's because of the type of moss I was using. It almost seemed like a cheaper quality, and it was a big bag that I got from my local, um, what do you call it, hardware store. And I don't know, I just didn't like it. I didn't like the way it felt. It wasn't soft like this one, so I am pretty sure it was a different type of moss, but I really like this one. You find it where the orchids are at your local Home Depot or Lowe's, and it works just great. But yeah, so what I did is I got some out of the bag, and I filled this, glass or dish with water, and I'm just letting it soak. Um, the bag recommends that you soak it for an hour prior to use. I am very impatient, so I'm not waiting an hour. What I do is I like squeeze the heck out of it and knead that water into it, and I think that works just fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to squeeze the excess moisture out of some of this, and I'm just going to throw it on my repotting mat here. When I do this, I only do a little bit at a time. I'm not going to fill the moss pools all the way to the top. I only fill them up a little bit past the height of the plant, the actual height of the plant, only because, that's just more that I have to water. Will it hold more moisture for longer? Probably, but that's just how I've been doing it. I will show you what I mean if you're not really sure what I'm talking about, but I wasn't going to use all of this that was in the dish, but I think I'm just going to use it all. I typically just fill up the moss pole up, and like I said, past the height, a little bit past the height of the plant. But I think this will be just the right amount. I'm going to put this over to the side. Hopefully I don't forget about it and step in it. You can use your moss just like that and fill up your moss pole, but what I like to do is I like to add some orchid bark to it. Adding the orchid bark doesn't hold moisture, like too much moisture, but I do like that it makes it a little bit chunkier and airy. Not to mention, it makes a lot more product for your moss pole. I do like that, it creates some little spaces in between all of that moss so that for airflow, and the moss holds moisture just fine. But I really like how it's worked out for me or my plants, adding the orchid bark in there. And when I didn't have any orchid bark, I used cocoa chips like these right here. Let's see. That's cocoa chips. I buy those in brick form. They're like compressed, and you just put them in water, and they kind of absorb the water and swell up. And then one brick gives me like a whole tub of, I don't even know how much it is, but it gives me a whole tub of cocoa chips. Those things are really compressed, and it's a lot of them. A lot. Okay, so this isn't the easiest to mix up, but you just try to get it mixed up as well as you can. Just the chips tend to fall to the bottom under the moss. Okay, I'm done mixing that. I forget how many came in this pack. I do have what, 5, 6, 7, 8. It was an 8-pack. And they are quite large. They're tall and they're wide. So I can't necessarily use them for smaller plants, but these have been perfect for the monsteras and the philodendrons. Oh, they are a pain in the butt to unroll because they want to roll back. They have that memory. So there are these little lines on the side here where you fold them, and that kind of gets that, it kind of keeps them from rolling back onto itself. I've done this quite a few times, so you'll see me getting it done super quick. So that's it there. I try to mix this as I fill the moss pole because, like I said, the cocoa chip or the orchid bark tends to fall to the bottom. I'm not gonna overfill this. I don't need to overfill it. It's kind of one of those things that you just kind of figure out how much to put in your moss pole. And I'm still not sure if I'm overfilling them or if I'm filling them just enough. I think so far so good. I'm not overfilling them. I have noticed that looking at other people's moss poles, they do look like they're really pushing their sphagnum moss into the moss pole to make it a little bit more compact or a little bit tight, packed tighter into the moss pole. But I don't know. I feel like mine aren't that packed in there, and I think that's just perfect. I want to be able to let them breathe. I think the reason that people tend to pack them in a little bit more is so that they hold moisture for longer, which makes total sense. I probably should do that, but I haven't had too big of an issue of having to constantly water them. They don't dry out that much. I also do have a little bit higher humidity in here than most people do in their homes or in their plant room. In here, it's about 65 degrees, right? 65 degrees, 65 percent humidity in here. So that's a little bit on the higher side because it is raining outside. And then my room is kind of small. I'm in the master bedroom. My room is a little bit small with the addition of this plant or sunroom, and the bathroom is just, a few feet away. So when somebody takes a shower and all the humidity comes over here, and the next thing you know, it's like 80% humidity in here. I do have a window behind me that opens, so if it gets too high, then You just open that and let it some of it air out. But anyways, as I was saying, my moss poles don't dry out as fast in this house versus, you know, the last house we lived in. They would just dry out the next day. These things are a pain in the butt sometimes to put together. I tried to put them all in at once like I just did right now, and they just popped right out. So I'm just going to do them one at a time. They're like these little arrows that go into the slits, and they just kind of get caught. You know, they kind of fasten in there. Luckily, the humidity is a little bit higher in this plant room, so I'm not constantly having to water them. Maybe water them maybe once or twice a week. Water my moss poles, which is great because having to water them every day is not ideal. It is not fun. I'm just kind of packing in a little bit more of that moss at the bottom. It does tend to fall out, but it's okay. Right, I think that looks great. It's not too packed in there. Still got a little bit of give. So I'm going to put this off to the side, and I'm going to take my plant out of its pot so that I can repot it in the same pot, but with the addition of the moss pole. So let me just get all of this out of the way here. Actually, I'm going to put this back into this dish. That way I don't get soil in it. Since I don't have that much moss left over, moss / orchid bark, after I'm done adding it to my pot, I'm just going to pack that back into the moss pole. Alright, we're going to take this out of there. I used to use these on all of my plants all the time, but they don't stay very well. They get very wobbly. And then your plant's just doing this, dancing around whenever you move it. I made a big mess with this moss. Okay. There's a lot of water in there. Yucky. Oh, I almost dropped it. I haven't had this philodendron for very long. Oh, it was already growing. The roots were already growing. Nice. I haven't had it for very long, and so it hasn't, you know, held on to the rest of the soil that I repotted it in just yet. So what I'm gonna do, get my moss pole here. They do get heavy because of all that water. Just put it right in there. And moss poles do take up quite a bit of space in the pots, but that's okay, because what will happen is that your plant the roots will find their way into the bottom of the moss pole and just grow up. And so I know that was a concern of mine before. I don't know if it's a concern of anybody's, but if it is, it's okay if it takes up space in your pot, just as long as you can get that your root ball in there. And the root ball is not that big on this plant just yet, so it actually fits perfectly in there. Okay. I did mix a little bit of soil, cocoa chips into the soil mix. I don't have to really backfill it too much. Let's see if I can lean that there. And see how my root ball isn't so big, so it will actually fit into this. And I can kind of squeeze it a little bit just to make it a little bit narrower to fit it in front of that moss pole. I don't know if you can see there. Yep, you can see what I'm doing. It's perfect. Actually, that actually worked out really well. I'm gonna have to get up here. Back then, before I started using moss poles, or I even, considered using a moss pole, I always wanted a bigger pot so that I can fit my plant and my moss pole in there, which is, reasonable. You do want your pot to be able to fit both, but you don't need to have a really giant pot. You just need to be able to fit your root ball in front of the moss pole. And it should be just fine. Sometimes there's a gap behind, sometimes there's a gap behind the moss pole. And I just kind of backfill that with some soil just so that it's not leaning back or flopping around. Give it a little tap to fill in all those gaps. Just push that down. Nice. Oop. Poor plant's gonna break before I'm done with this. I think that looks great. And I think just tapping it so that all those little spaces and air pockets get full of. My son has friends over, and the dogs are in here in the room with me because then they'll be barking all day, the whole time that his friends are here. And so they can hear them, laughing and doing whatever outside of the room, and that's why he's barking. And that's why I'm stuck in here filming this video making a moss pole, because I like to stay out of my kids' hair. I know as a parent I should be out there embarrassing my son, but I don't like to. I like to stay in my room when they're here, just so I stay out of the way. Also, I'm in here with my plants. What more could I ask for? Alright, so I'm using this, I guess what you call floral tape to secure the plant to the moss pole. You can use Velcro if you have it. I have Velcro too, but for moss poles, I prefer to use this floral tape. I think that's what you call it, because it's plastic and it doesn't absorb any water. I don't tie the heck out of it to where I'm strangling my plant, but I'm tying it enough so that I'm bringing the plant and the moss pole together, so that way it signals, so that way those roots sense the moisture and want to grow into the moss pole. I think that looks great. It's a little bit crooked, but it's fine. All right, look at that. I don't know if you can see it in the hole. I didn't fill it all the way up because, like I said, I don't see a point in filling it all the way to the top. It would probably hold more moisture if I did that, but I will fill it as it grows. And that's how I have all of my other moss poles. They're only filled up to a little bit past the height of the plant, and as they grow, I will fill it, I will backfill it some more. But yeah, that is it for this one. I don't have very many philodendrons left, but I feel like most of the ones that I do have left, I've added to moss poles. I do have 2 more that I want to add a moss pole to. I think I have, let me see. How many of these do I have? I have 2 more moss poles left, which is perfect because I do have 2 more plants that I want to add to moss poles, or I want to add moss poles to. But I don't know that I want to do that right now. That's a lot of work. But I did this really quick because I've done it before, so I already know the drill. But yeah, I'm really happy the way this came out, and hopefully it takes root into the moss pole and I don't get the urge to get rid of it because I'm bored with it. But now that it's not so wonky, it's not flopping around with this bamboo stick, I like the way it looks. And I can't wait to see it grow. And we can't wait for those leaves to grow really big. If you've ever seen a really mature philodendron silver sword, they are gorgeous. And I'm just not patient enough to wait. And so then I get bored really quick and I just want to find it a new home. But now that I added this moss pole, I am pretty confident that I will love it all over again. But yeah, I think that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and give me a like and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye.